the one to take care of his children, the one to perhaps once again start a family with, to start his life over again, to make his dreams come alive. And he gets out the parchment and he begins to write the papers of divorce. And tomorrow he would find 2 witnesses to witness, and he would have her sent away. He lays the parchment perhaps beside his bed, and he goes to sleep. And as Joseph sleeps, the angel comes to Joseph. Says, Joseph, Mary has been overshadowed by the Holy Spirit, and she shall conceive and give birth to a son, and his name shall be Jesus. And he shall save his people from their sins. Joseph, the promised Messiah, the promise to Adam and Eve in the garden after they had fallen, that someday a son would come to save them from their sins. That when they sacrificed that first lamb, confessed their sins, sacrificed lamb, the blood that was shed as a symbol of the Messiah who was to come. That promise that was renewed with Abraham, the father of your people, your ancestor. That promise of the Messiah is going to be fulfilled in your lifetime, in your family. It will be your son, Jesus. And Joseph awakens in the morning, and he goes to Mary's father. And you can imagine Mary's father. Even if he believed Mary himself, do you really think that he would say to Joseph, it was an angel? You're right. Joseph says to Mary's father, I still plan to marry your daughter. An angel of the Lord has spoken to me in a dream. Can you imagine the joy that Mary's father felt? Perhaps the marriage was hastened and they were married. It was overlooked. It was one of those secrets. Not a secret forgotten for long, for when Jesus would come later, the accusations would follow him. The New Testament talks about the accusations that were made about his birth. But Joseph was seen in his community as an honorable man who had taken Mary as his wife. But Joseph knew that Mary had been faithful to him, that she was the handmaid of the Lord. Can you imagine what it must have been like when Joseph had to go to Bethlehem? His wife, his new bride, on the donkey. How many times I read this story to my children when they were little. My Bible friends, clip, clop, went the donkey's feet. No, I've not ridden a lot on horses, and even less on donkeys. But I know it's not the mode of transportation that I want to make a long journey on. They make their way. Mary's pregnant, riding on the donkey. Joseph is walking. They come to Bethlehem. You know the story, we tell it every Christmas. There's no rooms, no hotels. You know, if only Joseph had checked on Expedia.com, he could have gotten a discount on the stable. I need a place. You know, I went to that place in Bethlehem with the stones that now is under the church in Bethlehem. Not a place covered with silver, but then not so nice. I've been in a few barnyards. I fed a few cows. been around a few sheep. It's not what I enjoy. And I used to, when I lived in Alberta, in the morning I would wake up and I could smell that the farmers had fertilized their field from their dairies. I think, oh, for the smog of the city. And people said, you're moving to California, the air is bad. I said, it's much better than the manure here in Alberta. That's all I can say. It's a stable. You think about the flies, the animals. How poor are you if you have to give birth in a stable with animals? And you think about the juxtaposition between Rome and Caesar and the legions of soldiers and the Sanhedrin with the high priest and the council and the temple in Jerusalem, the symbol of God in Israel and their partnership with Rome, the state, and God being born of the Virgin Mary in a stable with animals. Jesus said, if you have seen me, you've seen the Father. Not just when he was healing the sick and raising the dead, but when he was born as a baby, innocent, without power, without grandeur, without notice, lost in the sea of humanity, in the history of the world. One more baby born just as easily could have died as lived. And no one would have known, and no one would have cared. Just another baby of another couple, of someone who came at the command of Caesar to register themselves in the city of Bethlehem that day, that year. But there's Mary, her first child, giving birth. When I saw my children born, I thank God that I wasn't a woman. I don't even understand why God chose to do things that way. Can you imagine in a barn giving birth, and the baby starts to cry, and it's wrapped in the swaddling blanket, and it's brought to the Mother Mary, and she holds it to her breast, and she touches its face, and she looks at its fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers on that hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers on that hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toes on that foot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toes on that. Such little toes. Oh, Mary, the joy of that new baby. She cries. Joseph is so excited. Another son is born. But it isn't just the joy of Mary. It's not just the joy of Joseph. But all of heaven begins to sing, and the angels begin to sing because Jesus has been born. And they look on and they look down at this world. Can you imagine an unfallen angel of God looking down at this cesspool of a world of man's inhumanity to man killing and killing each other, knowing that within the next 2 years, Herod is going to send his soldiers to kill every baby there is in Bethlehem in his attempt to kill Jesus. And yet within the hearts of the angels spring forth the greatest joy. Joy to the world that Jesus has been born. And those angels surround the stable.